South Florida, where I woke up this morning and it was 40 degrees and there was frost on the ground. That is very unusual, but I know there are people on this call who will throw stones at me if I start complaining about cold weather at 42 degrees. So hope everyone is staying warm and is ready to hear about hybrid events. Not the most fun and entertaining subject, but a very relevant and very, very important subject. So if everyone can see my screen, I'm going to get started. So conducting a hybrid event, right? An in-person option and a virtual option, right? Meaning you have both. So this picture is from the Leadership Summit we in Florida had in October of this year. I am the 2021 state president for Florida State Network. And we decided that we were going to have an in-person and virtual option for our leadership summit. I thought for sure when I rolled this out, I would have 5 people sitting in the room and 72 people on Zoom. I was shocked, a little scared, and had to quickly pivot when 90% of our state leaders decided they wanted to come in person in October. But let's talk about really what a hybrid event is. And a hybrid event, I have to move my Zoom. Sorry, guys, you're right in front of mine. A hybrid event is a trade show, conference, or an unconference. Has anyone ever heard of that? Because I'm not even sure what that means. Obviously, this was a Webster definition. Seminar, workshop, or other meeting that combines a live in-person event with a virtual online component. I am here to tell you that even when, and hopefully very soon, we're past this plague that we have been under, I think our world, and I think many of you will agree, is forever changed, that we will have the option for in-person and virtual events going forward. Aside from the health component, we realize that more people can participate in our events if they don't have to travel to them. And at the end of the day, isn't that what it's about? Reaching people and participating in our events. So I think it's here to stay. Before we get into the specifics of how to make it work, I want to talk about what makes a hybrid event successful. So first and foremost, in our new world, it's keeping people safe with temperature checks and everything else. I want to share with you how we did our October meeting. And then I want to share with you how we just did our midwinter conference, our convention. We did in person and virtual. And I'm telling you, we were strict as heck. I had some people say to me, Amy, if you make me wear a mask, I'm not coming. And do you know what my answer was to that? I'll see you virtual, because if you're coming in person, you're wearing a mask. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. And I understand that people have different views and they have different perspectives, and I respect that. But at the end of the day, if we're holding a virtual and in-person event, guys, as Women's Council, we must protect our members and all our attendees. So how did we do it? We had wristbands for every day if you have multi-day event, right? Because just because someone didn't have a temperature on Thursday, does it mean they couldn't have a temperature on Friday? Of course they can. And not that temperature is the only indication, but if they have a temperature, they're not coming in. So we had wristbands for every day. We invested in the thermometers, right? The infrared ones. And every day people had temperature checks and a wristband. If we had an event at night and they weren't having their wristband, they lost their wristband during the day, guess what happened? Another temperature check and a wristband. The next day, different color wristband. We even went as far as to have masks made, right? We had masks with Women's Council logos. That was an investment and that was in our budget. Why? We wanted to make sure it was the right and good mask that everyone was having, and what a great photo op for the Women's Council. Okay, so we kept everyone safe. But what else makes a hybrid event a success? The experience that everyone has. The experience. Were the in-person attendees able to see, hear, and experience the convention, conference, meeting, speakers, other attendees, and other virtual attendees? That matters. Did the virtual attendees feel as if they were in the room? Our October event, that was the first time we had done something like this. We brought in an AV company and we'll talk about it. And the greatest compliment I felt we received from our virtual attendees was I felt like I was sitting in the room. To me, that was a win. Were the virtual attendees able to participate in all aspects, right? Other than you have a cocktail hour, you have something that they can't physically be, but at the meetings. Were they able to ask questions, be seen on the screen, ask questions and hear the answers? And depending on the type of event, really, when they had a question, could you see them asking the question versus something in the chat and someone saying, Jane Doe has a question and they read it for them, right? So the type of experience that you provide is going to make all the difference in the world to the success of your event. Okay, so let's talk about some things to consider for all hybrid events. And I'm saying all hybrid events because there's different size events that have different opportunities, different AV, different experiences. So handouts, guys, as silly as this sounds, this was probably one of the most, this was probably one of the most difficult aspects for me of our conferences, October and 2 weeks ago. You will need to replicate what your in-person attendees see for your virtual attendees. So for all of you, how many people, show of hands, have ever led a meeting? Yes, you've run a meeting? Okay. Is it like herding cats at times to get the presentations from everyone, to get them on time? Usually it's the 11th hour, you started your meeting and someone's running in the door with their presentation. Well, you can't do that with a hybrid event. Why? Oh, I set a timer and I never set the timer. So why? Because you need to have them saved for somewhere for the virtual attendees to receive. So for our events, we started with the due date for our documents 2 weeks before the event. What percentage do you think of the presenters do you think I had their presentations 2 weeks before the event? I'm not even sure it was double digits. I think I had one, but at least I started to be able to say, you're late, I need, far enough in advance that 5 days before the event, I was done with that aspect, and you have to be done. So you may want to consider creating a shared drive. I don't care what platform you use. I just care that you have a platform, right? I suggest you're so ridiculously detailed on your shared drive that it is, forgive the expression, dummy proof. And I'm going to show you what I mean by what I mean in a minute, right? Because the last thing you want is your convention going with people saying, I can't find where is, right? So there's a lot of different ways to do it. You have your shared drive, and I'm going to switch screens and then come back. Here's an example of the shared drive for our midwinter convention we just did. On the left, you guys can see my mouse moving? No, you can't, right? On the left, you will see Midwinter Convention 2021 presentations, right? Folder couldn't be more exacting. Fridays, Saturdays, Thursdays. Out of order because Google Drive puts it in alphabetical order. If there's a way to do it otherwise, I haven't figured it out and I don't think it matters. But on the right, I went into Friday, right? And Friday, you can see, had listed the exact presentation. So if they were attending the awards presentation, click there. If they were attending the education, click there. Do you see how that might be? I hate the expression dummy proof. I can't think of, keep it simple, stupid, KISS method. How's that? So let me go back for a moment. How do people get to see the drive and the documents? There's a lot of different ways, and we're going to talk about it more in the presentation, but you can share the link. If it's not a tremendous number of attendees, share the link with them to the Google Drive or whatever platform. If it's a larger group and you're using a platform like Eventbrite or any of the platforms for registration, you might have an autoresponder that sends them a link to your documents. If it's a multi-day event like we just had for our January convention, we ended up like National does, like you got an email this morning with today's links, that we sent a daily link with the day's sessions, the Zoom links and attachments of this presentations for the day, or a link to the presentations for the day. You need to decide what's right for your conference or meeting depending upon the size of it, okay? I'm telling you, my greatest lesson is your due dates for the documents and being so militant in ensuring they get it to you in advance. I am telling you, it will rock your event if they don't. Okay. If there's any questions, we'll look in chat. I think Olivia's monitoring that for us. So we talked a minute ago about the communications and how you get the information out. So here's a great example. I don't know if Rebecca Camarón is on this call, but she's our technology chair here in Florida. And every morning before our convention, Rebecca sent an email out. This event was done through Constant Contact. And it was thank you for attending. And here's the link for each session today. And what you can't see on the left is if you go to the right, you will see at the bottom, click on link to access presentation and documents. Couldn't be more simple, right? What's the only thing that could trip you up with this? If someone's emails go to their spam and they don't see it. So what can you do, everyone? You can send an email 3 days before convention, a week before convention, send to and say, make sure this email is saved. Make sure this email is saved so you get the emails in the morning, right? Will everyone have this and will it be foolproof? It will not. We know that, but you do your best in that regards. Moving on. Okay. Continuing on now, we're talking about what applies to all hybrid events. It's a new world, guys. You don't have to have all your speakers in person. You can have some of your speakers virtual. What does that do for your cost for your speakers? Down. So let me talk to you about 2 of our speakers for our convention last week. On the right, anybody here recognize the face of the person on the screen? That would be Jim DeLizia. If you know Jim DeLizia, he does a lot for us at Women's Council National, and he just did our strategic plan for our Florida State Network. So guess what we had him teach? Strategic planning for your business, whether it's your Women's Council business, your real estate business, or any business. We had handouts. He said, print the handouts and have them in the Google Drive for virtual. He said, I need 2 runners in the room with mics. So what did we have to do? Have the AV company have 2 wireless mics, right? We had someone monitoring the Zoom. So if there's a question on Zoom, so whether you're in person or you're virtual, you should have had the same experience. On the left, we had another speaker, Dan Owolabi. And if you heard me speak at the last national convention when I talked about authentic leadership, we hired the author who wrote the book. We hired the author who wrote the book, and here he is presenting. And if you know the face on the big face on that screen, Maya Angelou, of course, he was controlling his presentation. And whether it was people sitting on Zoom or people sitting in the room, they saw the same presentation. So your speakers do not have to be in person. Doesn't that open up a world of opportunity for us? But if you want your speakers in the room, guess what? We can do that as well. And if you want an event that you have both, you can do that as well. So let me tell you what this picture is. And if Charmaine Hickey's on this call, she's about to kill me because I didn't warn her for this. But Charmaine Hickey is our 2021 State Vice President, and she was presenting at our Leadership Summit in October. The screens behind her were twofold. The screens behind her were so people in the audience could see her presentation, but also they mirrored what people on Zoom were seeing. On this picture to the left, you'll see all our attendees with masks on, because again, I said it's required. You'll see a camera in the middle of the screen. It's a wide angle camera. And then you see our Zoom attendees in the back of the room, and we could see them. That's harder to do at a big convention. This event had about 70 people in person, 30 people on Zoom. So when the person on Zoom had a question, guess what we all did? We simply turned around and looked at them. Could I have thrown them to a screen in the front of the room? Yes, we would have had different additional AV costs to have that additional screen and input, right? So a lot of different ways you can do it. But speakers in person, speakers on Zoom, either work, okay? I'm moving on. Okay, pricing in person versus virtual. Let's talk about this. I learned valuable lessons, and I think we need to share this with each other as we learn lessons. If you make an event free and someone signs up for your event and they haven't paid a dime and something comes up, do you think they're missing your event with little to no pain? They are. But if you make them pay something, do they pause a bit before they just don't show up? They do. So Your pricing, in my humble opinion, there's no steadfast rule here, does not need to be the same for in-person and for virtual. In-person, without a question, guys, gets a different and better experience. There's nothing you can do about that. That's the reality, right? You can have night events. We had an outdoor cocktail reception, strategic partner appreciation party at our convention that the in-person came to and the virtual didn't. It was included in the price of the in-person. Do you think they should pay the same price? We didn't think so. So what we did is for our convention, we did $100 in person, 25 for Zoom. Do I wish I had gone higher than 25? Yes, but it was our first hybrid convention and I wasn't certain how it would be received. 25 was nothing. I probably should have done 50, just sharing that with you as my lesson learned. But there's no reason it needs to be the same, but I encourage you not to have it free. Okay. Continuing on. You need to consider if you're doing breakout sessions. Now, I learned this lesson in October. We decided to do breakout sessions at our summit, leadership summit, for budget review. We were having every local network president and president-elect present their budget in mini breakout groups. Okay, so what we did was those who were going to be in person, we had obviously go with their masks on an area. We had everyone on Zoom on one breakout session. We sent that breakout session to a conference room. We had a couple people with laptops who were in person sitting in the room, all looking at the Zoom attendees, and then we had the Zoom attendees on a big screen. If you have too many for the breakout session, too many people virtual, so you do more than one breakout session. You can have all virtual with someone virtual running it. You can have someone with a laptop in a room talking to people, but they can feel there's no difference for their breakout session than for those in person. But what was my lesson learned? For us to do the presentation of their budgets on Zoom, they had to get me their budgets far in advance. I love my Women's Council family, but for the love of God, the last minute changes on your documents kill us when we're trying to do a virtual event. Please understand what's going on behind the scenes. Get your documents done and get them sent and walk away from it, because it rocks everyone's world when we keep having to swap out, right? Or print out or so forth. So that is the toughest part of a hybrid event, is your documentation and your presentation. So you can do breakout sessions. You just need to decide how many people and how you're doing it. All right. So before I move on, and I'm looking at the chat, are there any questions over anything that I just went through?
Amy, there is a couple of questions. There's one here about how much does an AV company cost for a meeting?
I'm going to talk about, yep, that's the next part of my presentation.
Got it. All right.
Yep. Thank you. Is there anything else specific to what we went on? Okay, let me share something with you, because I just saw, and thank you, Olivia, a question or a comment about the cost. One of our speakers charges between $4,000 and $6,000 to come in person. He charged $8,000 to do virtual. It's a big difference. Guess what? We wouldn't have been able to have him for $4,000 to $6,000. For $1,000, we got a sponsor, and there he was speaking, an author of a book. I thought that was incredible. It opened a whole new world. All right, so cost of an AV company. Are you all sitting down? Are you ready? Let's talk about the various scenarios, because that impacts the price. So there are more scenarios than what I put on here, but let's just talk about it. A few people in person, majority virtual. I know that Florida Realtors just had their installation and their convention, and they had just their officers in person. Everyone else was virtual. That is probably your easiest hybrid scenario, and we're going to talk about it. A small gathering, you're having a local network meeting, you have majority in person, you have a group that's virtual, right? Whether they're doing a presentation to the audience or interactive, still relatively easy. This is where you start getting more complicated, the mid-size meetings and the large meetings. So mid-size meeting, like my October summit, majority in person and a group virtual, or a large convention like we did just now, guys, that's a completely different beast. And we'll talk about that. Multiple rooms, multiple breakout sessions, different presenters, some in person, some virtual, substantial group in person and substantial virtual. all of these add different complexities, and we're going to talk about it. Now, I'm going to ask you this. Try not to get hung up on the technology. I'm going to give you guidelines and I'm going to give you some information on pricing. Don't get hung up on it because it's going to be different in each of your areas and what company you're working with. I just want to let you know what to expect and who you need to engage. Does that sound good? Okay. Mindy, I love you. You're so good and responsive. I'm watching Mindy when I'm speaking because she's nodding her head and doing so. Thank you. All right. So different hybrid events bring different AV requirements. My first recommendation, find an incredible AV company, and I mean it, and partner with them. I can't say it loud enough or enough times. You know, we had an AV company that just happened to be the AV company at the hotel in October when we did the event. When we did our convention in January, I went to the venue and said, I will bring our convention to you under one condition. I'm bringing my own AV company. She said, we have a great AV company. I said, I have no doubt, but he's worked with us and he knows what I need and I don't have time to start from the beginning. And guess what? They let him in. Okay. Now, I still had to pay for internet from the company from that hotel. There was no way around that, but everything else was our AV company. Guys, I'm here to tell you our new world brings additional costs, and it's costs that you did not expect. You have to spend money to make the experience positive for everyone. Most of us did not accurately forecast for 2021. One, we had no idea if we were still going to be hybrid. I mean, if we're still going to be virtual. And I can assure you, I had no idea the cost for AV to the degree that we needed. Guys, it's okay. It's okay. Change your budget. Go back to governing board. Whether you're local network or state or your own business outside of real estate, this is our reality. If you do not pivot, you will be left behind. Maybe you need to conduct some fundraisers for AV. Maybe you need additional strategic partners or sponsors for that event. It will cost money. Plan to spend it. If you do not, I am telling you, you will be left behind. One bad experience at a virtual hybrid event, they're not coming to the second one. Do it right up front. This is who we used, and I'm telling you why I have the picture. He travels around the country. If you want to take a picture of this, don't spend the money for him for a small event, but if you're doing a big conference, I strongly recommend them. They are not cheap. He will make sure you score an A+. We also had an agreement. I said, we are there to make sure we network with our members, to present, to make sure we do a great presentation. I do not want to be moving projectors. I do not want to be involved in AV. I need you to make this happen. And he did. Your job, guys, is to run your event, not the AV and technology of your event. And that's an important distinction. Your job is to be there when your members walk in the room, to say hello to them, to interact with them, to present, to listen, not to be running the AV. Can you tell I'm passionate about that? My little soapbox. All right, I'm going to go quick because we don't have much time left. A few people in person, simplest of all scenarios, guys. Wide angle camera, Zoom or software like that for all people. You just need to make a decision. Do you want your virtual attendees to be able to speak? Or is someone going to manage the chat and say so-and-so has a question? That's a decision for you. If you're going to have them interact, you're going to have to spend money on a big monitor or television. My AV company told me screens are out and he wouldn't let me even say the word screen anymore. They don't bother with that in this day and age. If you're going to have an interactive session, if you're not going to have an interactive session, you might want to consider a live stream software like StreamYard. I know our Tampa network in Florida has been extremely successful doing these presentations. You can go to Tampa's Facebook page and look at their presentation. You're not going to have the interaction from the audience, but you're going to be able to present without any Zoom attendees forgetting to be on mute and you're hearing their dog bark and so forth. It's a totally different beast. There is a limit to how many people can present. A small gathering, majority in person, you may be able to get away with simply doing a Zoom, but take into consideration what role you want your virtual attendees to play. Do you get my theme here? You need to stop and think what you want everyone to see, feel, and do before you can decide how you're doing it. I'm moving on. Medium event. All right. Medium or large, doesn't matter. I want to tell you things to consider, and then you're going to find an AV company to help you with this. Audio. For a small, shorter event, consider a wireless mic on a lectern. Easy to set up. For a larger convention, you need a wired lectern mic. It's more reliable and easier for people when they walk up to adjust. What happens when people have a lavalier mic? Stop, take it off, do this. Now they're in close proximity. We have COVID, they can't. You're going to need to be more formal than you would typically be for an all-in-person event. I'm here to tell you, if some of you are going, oh my God, I don't know what she's talking about. I didn't know any of this before October when I did my first hybrid event. There's something called an audio console, and it combines all the audio sources. For a small medium event, you will likely send one feed to the person, to the in-person and to the identical, meaning what the people in Zoom are seeing is the same thing that the people in the room are seeing, that presentation, right? But for a larger event, you need additional equipment. Why? If it's a big event, the people in the room need to have speakers so they can hear the presenter if they're sitting in the back of the room, right? But that's not necessarily what you want the people in Zoom hearing, because there'll be an echo, right? You also don't necessarily want the people on Zoom to be looking at the presentation when the person speaking in person has a static slide and they're moving around the room and being interactive, right? You want them to see the person, not necessarily a static slide. So one of the things that can be done is something called a video switcher, where someone literally sits in the back of the room and changes from the Zoom presentation to the wide angle camera in the room, right? So again, you don't need to be an expert. You just need to know that it exists. Cameras. Is there only one location for people speaking, one lectern, one room, one stage? You can get away with the one camera. But multiple rooms or multiple speakers or a performer like we had in January, stage and lectern here, performer over here, guess what? More than one camera, right? So depending upon your scenario for your event will dictate your AV company, how they arrange the room and technology, right? You need them to help you with that. So where do you start? And I know you guys want to know price, and I'll talk about it in a second, but take that proverbial step back. Start by deciding how you want your flow of your event. Do you want the virtual attendees to be able to be seen and ask questions? If the virtual attendees speaking will be limited, it'll be required less equipment, right? Do you need different things on different screens? Do you have different locations for different speakers, multiple rooms? So decide what you want, be able to articulate it, and then sit down with your AV company and create it, right? Your small event, just your local network meeting, I'm sure you can get a strategic partner who's got the capabilities to do this, but your bigger events, don't mess around. You know, bring in the expert. They do this for a living. Remember this. Your role at the event is to ensure the event is professional and runs smooth. If you're spending your time on AV, you're not spending it with your members. We have an opportunity, guys, to lead in the industry on how to do a professional hybrid event. Cost is very important, but it is not everything. I argued with people in my state about the cost that we were spending for this event, and I stand by. We had an A+ super event, but it cost us money. You have to spend money to create the experience. Last year was difficult for us all. Membership in every professional organization is down. Women's Council is not alone. I am telling you, these hybrid events are your opportunity to put us on the map once again. Not that we came off, but put us back in the forefront. It's your opportunity to shine. Consider doing a press release after a successful hybrid event where no one got sick and you have rave reviews. We're doing one for January. Now, I know I haven't answered the question about cost, and I don't want to sound like an attorney who always answers it depends, but I'm going to tell you it depends. But our 2.5 day convention with multiple rooms, multiple speakers, all day, night events, our AV, well, this is not really a fair answer because our AV also included the Wi-Fi and internet, also included a band, like they helped with a bunch of different things, but we were upwards of 20 grand. So did I readjust our budget? Did the state line get together, readjust our budget and go back to finance and budget and governing board? We absolutely did. But if you ask me if I think it was money well spent, I stand by. It was excellent decision to do it the right way. We had over 150 in person and over 100 virtual. And I'm here to tell you our 100 virtual would not have participated in this event. We had people the day before event that said, I was exposed to somebody. Can I switch to virtual? My answer was, heck yes. Thank you for keeping us safe. We welcome your participation virtually. And guess what? They participated and still got to join our event. This is your opportunity to shine. This is your opportunity to show the industry and the country that we can do this and keep everyone safe. But it will cost you money to do it. Be smart, be strategic, and partner with the right company. I'm going fast because I'm out of time. Olivia, do I have time for any questions, or do you want me just to let everyone know they can follow up with me?
At this point, we probably need to wrap it up. And yeah, if they can follow up with you, that would be great. Or at WCR@WCR.org.
Perfect. Guys, I'm going to go back real quick to one slide so you can get a picture of the AV company we used, as I think it is worth taking his information. If you're doing a big enough convention or conference, it is worth speaking with him. If you have someone locally that you want to partner with, go for it. But make the investment. It's worth it. Good luck with your hybrid events. If you have any questions, you can find me on WCR.org. I am Amy Snook from the Florida State Network. I wish you a wonderful day. Thank you for joining this session. I've never spoken this fast in my life. Have a wonderful day.